Anger is a really difficult emotion for relationships. It can be really uncomfortable when we feel it. It can be really scary when we're around it. And it just has this way of disconnecting people. So, because it's an emotion that will just come up from time to time, we have to have ways of dealing with that. And I'm going to break that down today. I'm Stacy Rocklein, and it is my mission to eradicate loneliness. And that sounds like a really big mission, but we just do that one relationship at a time, even one conversation at a time. And we work on reconnecting after disconnections and avoiding disconnections. And because anger can be such a disconnector, we need to have a way to deal with it. And here's the unfortunate truth is that you can't control other people's behavior. You definitely can't control other people's emotions. All we can really do is work on our side of the street, right? If you think about growth in a relationship, there's growth when you're in your lane, and then there's growth for the other person when they're in their lane. And we really need to stay focused on what's ours and what we can do about it. So today I'm going to give you 4 ways to work with anger coming up for yourself or coming up in someone around you so that you get a little bit more comfortable with it, but you also stay as connected as possible when that emotion arises. Let's talk about the emotion itself, first of all. The first 2 ways we can work with it are just to get comfortable with it, allow it, and feel it. But we do something that's really interesting with anger. Because we have been taught culturally that it's bad, for many of us, like things in my past have caused me to have a very strong reaction to anger. It's like terrifying to me. So I have this fear response that shows up in my body that is so uncomfortable. I just want to shut down. If I can't physically leave, I want to emotionally and mentally just disappear from the moment that is happening. So it's just an emotion. And it's okay that it's present. And you know what? Emotions will only have a 90-second lifespan. If we can stay out of our head and we can just focus on our body and breathe our way through it, they're going to come and go. And yeah, it is an ugly emotion, right? It's undesirable, but it's still an emotion. And true emotional health, like really, is to be comfortable with every single emotion. People tell us to get comfortable with our sadness and allow your grief, but nobody's walking around saying like, oh, like allow your jealousy, get comfortable with your jealousy. But the thing is it's an emotion too, just like regret, just like anger, and it might not feel good. And the world might be telling us that it's not okay to feel it, but it's here, it's emotion. And we are really, really, really emotionally aware and have high emotional intelligence when we can be comfortable with every emotion that arises. So when it comes up for yourself, it's really important that you recognize it, name it, let it be there. Don't judge it, because what we do is we see something like anger and then we try to shame it away. We're like, oh, that's such an ugly emotion, right? That's so beneath you. Oh, you're better than that. Like you shouldn't be feeling that. We tell ourselves all these like shaming stories about anger. So now it's even worse. Now we have anger and shame that we're dealing with. So don't judge it. Anger is coming up because you've got a need that isn't being met. So what you want to do for yourself in that moment to be present with yourself is to feel your anger, allow it to be here. It's going to move on, and ask yourself, what is it that I need? What is anger telling me? That's how you start to get comfortable with it. Now, the other way is to be present for the people in your life. And I definitely mean after the point where you know you're emotionally and physically safe. You can still be present when someone else is feeling anger. This is when I want to run for the hills. But it's actually the moment when people really need connection. It's uncomfortable to feel. And it doesn't feel good when you're feeling anger and everyone's running away from you because they're terrified of it. When you become comfortable with your own anger, you are able to stay with someone else's anger as long as they're expressing it appropriately. And that is a huge gift for us to give the people that we love, is to allow them to be seen and heard when they're having one of the more ugly, difficult emotions. And when you're there and it's coming up, you can just go like deep into validation, because their feelings are their feelings. Their feelings are real. Their anger is telling them that they have a need that's not being met. And you can just really see them with validation. That's a huge connector in relationships. So now we've got two ways to work with it when it just comes to the emotion: presence for ourselves and presence for the people that we love. The next two things that we're going to talk about are what you do when anger is getting a little dangerous. And this can happen in yourself, and it can also happen in the people that you love. So we talked about when it shows up being present for yourself and being present for your loved ones. Now we're going to talk about boundaries. Boundaries for yourself and boundaries for your loved ones. It's okay to feel angry. It's even okay to want to be witnessed when you feel angry. What is not okay, because that's an emotion, is when you do angry behaviors that are turned toward somebody else. Now, I love a good door slam, right? I love to drop a swear word. Those are ways that I can let anger come through. I can express my anger that don't have to be turned at a person. But a boundary for myself is I don't want to turn my anger on other people. I don't want them to feel it is directed at them. I might be angry with them. That's okay. I need to communicate that later. I need to talk about that need that's not being met later when I'm calm. But in the moment when I'm angry, the boundary for myself is to not turn that on somebody else. Now, boundaries for someone else. It's okay if somebody's angry and you want to stay with them while they're mad. That happens. What is not okay is if anger gets turned against you. It's not okay if anger gets turned against someone else in the vicinity and you can have a voice about it. So it's really important to have boundaries for that, right? Let's say somebody gets really mad and they call names. That's not okay, right? It's one thing to stay with somebody when they're feeling angry and they're like, God, I'm mad. And they're talking about it, about themselves. It's another matter for them to be turning it outward, calling names, throwing things that are dangerous, whatever, however someone expresses their anger. So it's really important that you have those boundaries. And a boundary, remember, the reason this is you working in your own lane, even though it's someone else's behavior, is that boundaries just come down to you promising that you're going to take an action when an inappropriate behavior happens. So what they do is their business. What you do in response is your business. So that's another way to work with anger. It's kind of like finding that line where this is safe anger and we can be here and we can stay with this and we can stay connected so someone does not feel alone and isolated. And then when the emotion becomes an angry behavior and it's pointed toward people, that's where you create boundaries for yourself and other people. So you've got to pay attention to that line where you're dealing with an emotion turning into an outward facing behavior. So those are 4 things you can do to get more comfortable with anger. Now let's talk boundaries just for a minute, because they are a normal part of every relationship. You're going to have to put them in order to create that feeling of safety where you're not afraid of anger, right? You're not afraid of anger because you know what to expect when it comes up and how to sit with it. And you're not afraid of anything happening because you've got these good boundaries, but you have to put in really good boundaries, especially when it comes to this emotion. And if you need some help with that, make sure that you grab the free PDF boundary blueprint. You can click the link to get that so that you've got a guide for helping you put those good boundaries in place so you have that circle of safety that keeps your relationship safe and keeps you connected no matter what turns up for you.